Madhavdas Gopal Krishnan did in fact speak to Mr. Penpa Tsering, who's the head of the Tibetan government in exile, and here's what he had to say.
Dalai Lama that he would indeed have a reincarnation, and the response coming in from China. Joining us to discuss all of this is Penpa Tsering, who is the head of the Tibetan government in exile. Thank you so much for speaking to us here at Times Now, sir. And as far as the recent announcement of Dalai Lama and the response from China is concerned, how are you looking at all of these developments? Because this is being seen as a historic announcement when it comes to the succession of the Dalai Lama on his 90th birthday.
The Chinese government will keep saying what they want to say. They don't bother about what the world has to say. They don't bother about the religious freedom of the Tibetan people. They not just occupied our country and blatantly suppress the Tibetans. And right now, the Chinese government is aiming at the elimination and destruction of Tibetan identity in the form of its language and culture and religion and all that. So it's not a surprise to hear things from the Chinese government. Of course, they have been saying it's a break from the tradition, but when they say it's a break from the tradition, what does that mean? That golden urn needs to be used. But it was something that the Manchus, when they had little influence in Tibet, introduced this in 1793, but it was rarely used, and whenever it was used, it was the selection has, through the traditional means, have already been done. So there are 3 points the Chinese government is making. One is that they will look for His Holiness reincarnation within China or within Tibet. And for that, His Holiness has always said, I will be born in a free world. Because when China invites His Holiness to visit China and Tibet, His Holiness, their precondition is that His Holiness should stay back. And His Holiness has always been saying that if I get opportunity to go to China or Tibet, I will go, but I will not live there because there is no freedom there. Also, the Chinese government says, when Chinese government says that they will choose for the next Dalai Lama within Tibet or China, that is the reason why His Holiness says he will be born in a free world. And in the case of using the golden urn, there have been 8 Dalai Lamas even before the golden urn. So what about those Dalai Lamas? Are they not Dalai Lamas just because Chinese government introduced golden urn for their political benefit? But even the Qings were Buddhists in a way. But the present government is a communist government that does not believe in any religion. So for that matter, I don't think they can fool the international community or the domestic audience within the country. And the Tibetans will definitely not accept any choice of the Chinese government or direct interference by the Chinese government in the selection of the next Dalai Lama, whenever it happens. But I want to make clear that His Holiness has reassured us many times that he will live for more than two decades and more. So it's still very early, according to us. Because His Holiness is committed to live long, and there are also provisions pre-signed that this Dalai Lama will live very long.